Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and this is Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. Please go down there, hit the subscription button, hit the notifications bell so you always know when there's a new an updated video or something we have to say. And go down to the About section. You will see the long sleeve, short sleeve, Dutch Hunter Rendezvous, Legend Superstition Mountain shirts in the black and the gray. Being done with that, leave a comment if you like. We always like to hear back from everybody of what they're thinking about on these videos. Doing this one pre-rendezvous. So the rendezvous will be taking place. So there's no update on that because it hasn't happened. It's magic of doing this stuff in advance. So this week, want to kind of get into a story. Goes back, probably not as far back as I think. Sometime in the mid 2000s. I don't know always how to say that. Early 2000s, right? Because then you got the two teens, or however you want to say it. But sometime, I would guess 2007, 8. 2006, somewhere in there. And I was out. It was actually followed up a trip I'd had out in the mountains with Greg Davis, Randy Wright, Kevin Nunemacher. I'm trying to think of who else. I think Larry Wright might have been there, not related to Randy Wright. And then we had followed up on another trip with Randy and Larry, unrelated, the Wrights, but and it was out by Second Water. Now the first trip we went out towards more Boulder Canyon and a John Tuning Cave mine, which I'll have to actually tell that story sometime. But I'm not telling that story in the paint mine and any of that. What happened on that trip transpired. Very cold day that day. But this trip was following up after a couple of these other trips. And I believe Randy wasn't available, and I just wanted to get out and do some hiking and kind of look around at a specific area we'd been out with Larry and kind of look around because Larry had shown us some stuff we didn't know about, and I wanted to do a follow-up and kind of look further deep back in this canyon we'd been in. Larry and Randy and myself had went out, and we went out by Second Water, and we went to Obie Stoker's ? Mine in that area and checked all the stuff out there, and both those places Obie was digging in are still up there on the hillside and pretty visible, and the question mark signs are still spray painted on all the rocks from back in the day. I don't know if it was spray painted or he just painted them, but they're there. And that's what those question marks are. If you're ever in Second Water, it's the question mark mine. That was Obie's. Anyhow, so did that, and we went down a couple different canyon tributaries in the area and checking those out. And I wanted to go back because we found a chimney, and there was a couple old prospects, and we did some tunneling around there. And there were some old mines, looked like they might have been silver or something they'd pulled out in there. Some pretty cool stuff, and nothing to do a major story on, but wanted to kind of get back in there and kind of check things out and kind of look further, see if there was something else Randy and I would be interested in. So I went in. For those of you who want to follow along a map, came in on First Water. Took the trail through First Water and out through Garden Valley, down into Second Water, and broke off and started heading north towards backtracking up into the Hackberry area, and started following different tributaries back in there because we'd seen plenty of prospecting signs. So I was kind of interested in what other people had been digging back in there and what else we could find back in there. So I'm working my way along, and I got in this one narrow, and it was a little bit of a gorge. And I looked around, and it had drizzled that day. And I kind of looked over, and I saw these markings on the rock. Now the first one was like a circle with a cross in it on the inside, but it didn't meet the circle lines. And I kind of looked at it, thought, okay, I don't know what that means exactly offhand. And right next to it was a second symbol, and it was like a cross with a couple dots. In the upper part of the T, the T of the cross, a couple dots, one dot on either side, and I found that kind of interesting. And the third one was a spiral, and yeah, I've seen those before, like means a spring or life cycle and different. It depends on people's interpretations, and they were probably a foot or so across each, and they were right there side by side, and I was looking at them thinking that's pretty cool looking. And I was just kind of like, I don't know what this means. And I looked around the area, really couldn't find anything significant. I wasn't sure if they were petroglyphs or if they were modern and all this. So I did what I thought was best, and I thought, well, okay, I'll just note down and we'll come back out and I'll find my way back in here again and bring Randy or someone and we'll go through and I'll show it to him. And I don't even know if he remembers this story, but you know, it was probably a month or so later we go back. So we go back, Randy and I go back in, and it was a month or so later, and I went back, and this time I was going to take pictures because I remembered what they looked like, but I wanted to take pictures. So I got back in, and it's one of those trips where I'm pretty sure I'm in the right area, and I kept looking, and I would go down these little gorges and tributary spots, and I didn't see anything. It was just, you know, I was looking at it and looking at it and looking around, and I told him, I said, you know, why there were these markings here before, these 3 spaced markings, and I couldn't figure it out. And there was another thing we were looking for. I'm trying to think. Some guy had told me there was a cave or crevice in the area with a crystal skull, which I talked about that story before. So we thought that could be in that area, and I told him, I don't know if this has anything to do with that and whatever, but this has to do with something, but we didn't know what the symbols really meant. I kind of looked the stuff up, but then I started thinking, well, did someone just carve them? But now I can't find them. So, and we spent some time looking, then we just went off and did our thing and found other things to kind of check out and stuff, but there was nothing significant. But it was very strange to me because I knew I'd seen them, and I was kind of thinking, you know, I know where I know I was back in here, and I know I spent pretty much a good part of the day back in here, but I pretty much retraced my path the whole time, so I don't know why we hadn't found them. But you just kind of let it go and think, man, that was just very weird, because I did see them. I know they existed. Sometime later, a few months later, again without Randy, and I think this is around the time he might have broken his foot, and he wasn't going back in the mountains very much for a year or two. So I went back in the area again, and I started looking around for it, and you know, I'm checking things out. I had this digital camera, and I brought it back in, and I got back into this one spot, and I got turned around a little bit. As I was coming out, I was looking, and I could see one of the symbols, and I was looking at it and kind of like going, damn, you know, there they are. How did we miss that? So I went to use the camera, and the batteries were dead. So I was like, damn it, because I wanted to show Randy, okay, these things do exist. But I looked at them again. It was the same symbols. I was really trying to kind of like, okay, how many gorges over? I'll count the gorges out, and then we'll come back and we'll look at it. And I'll bring someone back in, and I'll get some pictures of it. So I looked at them. They're there. Okay, it looks like. And I'm thinking more and more they're probably petroglyphs. But then, like I said, I kept having this doubt. Don't think they were Spanish markings of any sort. And there's a lot of odd petroglyphs back in that area. There's some down by the second water area site, but there's some random ones back in various places. There's one that I call the Thor hammer. It looks like a guy like Thor with a big hammer or something, you know, he's holding up. It's very strange because it's unusual, and it's the only petroglyph in that spot, and it's kind of hidden away. So I was thinking these are kind of odd, and how they're just spaced there. They're like eye level and all this, but I'm like, I'm going to remember where this is this time. So I kind of counted things out, worked things out, figured I'll see them the next time I come in, and I went on my way and went back out. So, and then planned on, it was probably at this point from the trip I'd made, trip with Randy, and then this one, it's spring, so I'm not going to be back till next fall. And of course at that point, I think it was a pallet, he dropped a pallet on his foot and he broke his foot. So he's not going back, he can't go back in the mountains for a while. So I just decided, all right, I'm going to get back out here, and next time I'll bring the camera. I'll make sure I have extra batteries, and I'm going to take a picture of this thing, because I wanted to not only show it to him, but I wanted to kind of like make sure I kind of kept track of it and could show it around and ask people, what do you think this is? So I get back, and it was probably October, November, and nobody went with me. I couldn't find anybody to go out on the trip with. And I was kind of keeping it to myself a little bit. I wasn't putting the word out too much because I thought it was very interesting. And I went back in, I have my camera, I have my extra batteries, and I bought the ones that aren't going to wear out, the lithium. I had a brand new pack of lithiums and a brand new set of lithiums in the camera. And I go out and make sure everything's fine. And I get out there and I'm counting. I figure, okay, it's about right here, one of these two here. And I go back and both, and they're nowhere there. And I'm looking at it and I'm looking at everything, and I'm just like, okay, this is stupid. Because there's no way they can just be vanishing and reoccurring and reappearing. And, you know, it was kind of frustrating. I went up and down and kind of thinking, well, maybe I had it wrong. Maybe I was tired, this, but, you know, okay. And I felt just absolutely just kind of like, I don't get it. So, you know, you sit out and then you go back and walk through. So I ended up the whole day that I could have actually had a good time. I spent almost the entire time just looking around for these 3 markings on these rocks, not knowing what they meant, just wanting a picture to prove that they actually were there. And of course, I have nothing to prove for it yet again on another trip. So I'm like, okay, this is my 4th trip. I haven't got a single picture. I am glad I'm not telling everyone I found these, or if I think they mean something, because now I'm looking like an idiot. So I came back out of the mountains. And again, sat down and thought, okay. And I think I even talked to Randy about it a bit. I said, I don't get it, because I saw them again. So I know they're there, but this time I'm by myself and I still didn't see them. I can't seem to find them to take a picture. So then you start wondering, like, is there something here that I'm not getting, that I'm, you know, what the hell? So I set up and decide, okay, you know what? January or so, February, I'll make another trip back. It's not a bad trip. I can, you know, you can get back in there in a couple hours. You're back in that area. So, you know, just to go back there and snap a couple pictures if it's there, it's only going to take me a 3-4 hour round trip. So it's not a big deal. So, and I don't remember when I made the last trip. Well, not last trip, but the next trip. And so I made the next trip, and I go back and I get there. And I'm walking back and I'm going through spot by spot by spot. And it's like at the 3rd, 4th kind of gorge ravine area I run across. And I look in and there they are. And I'm like, this is good, great, I freaking found it. My only trip was just to huff it in there, kind of just get in there as quick as possible, get some pictures of this stuff, look for it and all, and then just get out. I had no other aspiration. I was, you know, I was kind of sick of going back the same path. You know how it is when you drive somewhere that's a certain distance, it keeps getting shorter each time you go because you've been there so much. And I felt like I'd just been here way too much in the last year. It hasn't even been a year, and that was like my 5th trip. So I'm looking at them and all, and I reach in, and at that point I quit wearing my pack. I was wearing a hip pack. And I load everything in, and I reach into my hip pack where everything is, and I find the batteries, but I'd taken the camera out. So now I don't have the camera. I'm looking at them, and I'm like, okay. And I still don't know what they mean. I mean, I figure there's a certain significance, and I'm trying to look at them. And, you know, the problem with a lot of petroglyphs is the closer you get, the more distorted they are, so you got to get back. And I'm kind of looking at them and trying to see if I can see anything specific at all. I look around, I search the area, kind of look up above, around, and the stuff in the area to see if there's anything else. I'm looking for pottery shards, something. Don't have any idea the meaning. It could be just something to do with the spring down low, that was a symbol for the spring and the second water. So I was kind of thinking that could be it, but there could be something else, because the cross was kind of odd. I didn't know why that, because that didn't seem to be something of a petroglyph type thing, that cross with the 2 dots. It seemed like something very different, more of a rune type thing. So then, of course, I'm wondering, man, is somebody messing with something, or does someone do this on purpose? So that next spot, so I'm like, okay, I've got to come in again. So I've got to make another trip, because I got to figure this stuff out. So I go out, and now I'm going to make, I think we're at my 6th trip. So I'm going back again, because I've seen them. This time I got to make sure that somebody else is with me at least, and I can see them. Even though I'm also recognizing the problem that it seems like every other time I see the symbols. So maybe the next time I don't see them again. So as diligent as I am, and I'm sure this is within a year's time, here's the 6th time I'm going in. And I have my camera, and I took a buddy, and he went back in with me, and we were going to just go hike back because I wanted someone at least would say, yeah, there are those symbols are there. And we get back, and I had it counted out, and I knew where I'm going. At this point, I probably could have went in there with my eyes closed. Jax, you need to leave. You need to leave. Jax, sit. Be a good boy. Okay. No, you have to be good. You're moving the camera. So, dogs. And now we're going to play with the blinds. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyhow, so we go in this last time, and the two of us go in together, and I literally just go straight to it because I know where it's at, and I know where it's at. We get back there, and we get there, and we're looking at the wall, and there's nothing there. And I'm standing there and looking at it, and I'm just like, eh. And I'm telling him, I'm like, okay, I've been here, and half the time it's here, and half the time it's not. And I don't understand this. It's like odd trips it's here, even trips it's not, is driving me just crazy at this point. And I know there's something there, but I can't get, it's that thing like with dog with the ball. I can't get rid of it because I gotta like, not so much solve it, but just kind of find some sort of closure with it. And fortunately, my friend was smarter than me. And he grabbed his water bottle and he started splashing water on the rocks. And that moment, clarity hits me of that most days it either rained the night before or had been a little drizzle during the day or it was damp. And sure enough, there come the symbols. And I'm like, see, there they are. Of course, he made fun of me, saying, why wouldn't have I thought of that? And I said, I think I was just totally stunned at going, trying to find the place and then not being able to figure out, keep thinking I was in the wrong spot more than anything else. And I would have used all my water up in all these little gorges trying to find it. So we look at him, he sees him, and we're both, he's kind of, at that point, to me it's a big deal because I've been back there 6-7 times and I keep making these trips and I finally see him and I want to make some sort of record, want some sort of proof that I've actually seen these things and that there's something. The person I was with, who will remain nameless, but I don't think but he basically looked at me and said, yeah, they're petroglyphs. Okay, there's a lot of petroglyphs around here. I was like, yeah, but these were the vanishing petroglyphs. Very kind of an unusual story. It was one of those stories where, again, I'm not the paranormal guy, and I kept starting to question things because it was I just kept fighting through it, saying, no, there's a reason. And that happens a lot of times when you're out doing stuff, is you get caught up in the moment and your brain seizes. And I think that's what kind of happened to me on that is I got after the second, third trip, I was kind of like seized up, kind of like, man, I know it's there. I must be in the wrong place because I don't see it. I must be this. I couldn't imagine it. And I never sat back and really just put the thought together of saying, yeah, well, it could be a weather thing. And because it wasn't raining every time, but in the mountains, especially when it's cooler, the rain can come down and those rocks can get damp. And if there's a good amount of moisture the next day or so, especially when it's in an area that's not getting a lot of sun, the relief will be there, last longer. So I never got to that point, which shows you just anyone can kind of fall into that of just like being too smart for themselves. And I kind of really worked myself up. I still don't know what they meant. I still believe it has something to do with Second Water Spring and someone put them up there. I don't know. That cross kind of still bugs me to this day because I've just not really seen anything necessarily like that. Like I said, just a cross and then the two dots right next to it. And I, not being able to tell or have anyone that's a forensic geologist to take out there and look at the stuff, I didn't know. Unfortunately, the problem with those things, you don't want to, and I probably revealed too much, is people have a bad habit of going out and messing with them. And then next thing you know, there's petroglyphs that I know of for years and years, and then they're chipped away and screwed up because people want to add things to them or do something else. And that's a shame because it's a part of history, and it's a part of history someone left there and something someone might have done 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. And it's kind of really interesting overall. It survives this time, this statement, this, this form of written language that someone left behind. And even if we don't understand it, it doesn't mean it's still not important in some way. And I really don't think it was. There was mines in there, but I believe it had far more to do with talking about the spring. So there I go, kind of going around and around, dog chasing my tail, just like I did in the story. So that's the story of the vanishing petroglyphs. Sometimes I like to throw in these little kind of like little stories like this and trips and little things that kind of hung me up or something. Sometimes there's the more dramatic fashion stories. I like to mix them up and sometimes throw in the history of the mountains and history of some of the other people. I like that mix because it kind of like gets everybody kind of like in that groove of kind of like feeling like you're there, I hope. And I wish I had the ability to show on maps, because I know a lot of people have asked, can you map stuff out where these things are? But this was down, you go to the First Water, go through First Water Ranch, across Garden Valley, down to Second Water, and then you kind of peel up. And before you would head down to the Red Paint Mine, you kind of start to work yourself back north, up in those crevices in those areas, and there's some gorges and different spots back through there. And as back in there, you'll see some of the old mine prospects and some of the other stuff. There's a chimney one, and then there's a tunnel that goes in. It has a big open space room, and then a tunnel that probably goes back 40 or 50 yards, opens up into a little back cave in the back. And that was the one I think Larry Wright said he thought they'd been prospecting some silver back in. So very interesting place in itself, and it was a pretty cool trip. A lot of cool trips, hundreds and hundreds of cool trips like that. So that was my story for this week. I'm getting ready to kind of load things up, pack things up. Trevor and myself get out there and hang out with Frank and Woodrow and all the other guys, Shoes and the Feldmans and stuff, and have a great little program together on Saturday night, but have a good time at the rendezvous. Hoping to get out there and just be able to kind of chill it out and relax and tell some stories. Hear some news stories, because I love hearing other people's stories. There's a couple people claim to have found the Lost Dutchman Mine. Happens every year. And get to see my good buddy Salvador Deleel. I'm going to miss my guys like Dan Hopper and Bob Hopper and Rick Gwynn this year, because we lost those guys this year. And Dave Chase, who I hope Dave, I don't know if he ever checks out my videos, but Dave, get well. I know you're doing good. Looks like things are starting to come around. I don't expect you out there, obviously, but we'll see you next year. You're coming around, and it's good to see he's back mending ways. So that's going to be it. Too late to announce the rendezvous and anything going on that, but coming up in the January, look at the Superstition Mountain Museum. I will be doing a couple lectures there, be hosting one of a good number of people. I'll try to have come in and do something of a round table of people discussing Dutchman, allow people to ask questions. And I think I'm the first guest speaker for the museum. No, actually Teton Ken is. Teton Ken will be out, and then I follow him the following week. And I will be doing a Lost Dutchman, the fact and fiction type thing after that. So I hope to see people out there. I don't know if they film those or do anything with those, but that'll be part of the lectures I've been doing through this fall, going into winter, and I'll be wrapping that up there and probably changing pace and coming up with some new subject matter for the next lecture group that I kind of go through into the next year. And in the meanwhile, filming and doing other stuff with other people. So that all being said and done, thanks for joining me again this week. If you did come to the rendezvous, thanks for coming out and having a good time with us and enjoying, the weekend and so forth. Good times, that's what it's all about. 17 years of having a good time out there, just being with friends. If you don't, we'll share with you probably the next video after this. We'll probably talk a little bit about the rendezvous, or maybe kind of some of the comings and goings, or maybe start sharing some of those stories. And until then, because it's kind of in that time warp thing right now, but until then, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not, of course. And this was Chasing Legends. Take care, and we'll catch you the next time.